So I talked about this from the Knicks perspective. Now we're going to talk about it from the Mavericks perspective. And the basketball stuff I will get to. The potential of it is through the roof with KP's shot making and Luka's ability to do everything that Luka can do. But I do think there are some risks that the Mavericks are taking with this move because I've now seen the protections and the picks. I probably should have waited for those before I did that previous video because I was flat out wrong when I said they were heavily protected. One of them is unprotected, and it's whatever the next available Mavericks pick is. And then there's another one that's going to be top 10 protected within like 1 of 3 years or something. And when you combine those with the fact that KP's health up until this point has not been amazing, given that the guy has kind of fizzled out every year, and then of course he's had the torn ACL, is it a fear that Porzingis is perhaps a guy who plays 67 games a year, or maybe he is affected by this injury a little longer than we would expect, and then looking at the future picks that are going out, on top of the fact that the Mavericks are taking on money with Hardaway and Courtney Lee's contracts. Not that those guys are bad players, but still, I do think there is a little bit of a risk here for the Mavericks. Now, of course, the upside kind of trumps all of that, as I will talk about, but I do think that's something we should remember. But now we're going to get to the basketball stuff. The fit with KP and Luka is pretty wild. The shot making is great, and I've said this before, I don't think the Knicks ever used Porzingis correctly, because he was taking a lot of mid-rangers and turnaround jumpers, whereas I think under Rick Carlisle, Porzingis is going to be moving around the floor like crazy, and I would not be surprised if he's shooting more threes. I'm talking like somewhere between 7 to 10 three-pointers a game, and he's going to be cutting more often, he's going to be setting off-ball screens, he's going to be getting more post-ups on switches. Rick Carlisle is going to get so creative with how to get Porzingis open shots, and a lot of it is going to be similar to what he did with Dirk. I mean, I know it is kind of lazy to do the comparison with the two European dudes who can shoot, but it is like kind of uncanny how reminiscent of Dirk KP is with his shot making. Sure, the athleticism, the defense, and the ball handling are a little different, but I don't think Rick Carlisle is going to have to do things that he's never done before to get KP open looks. As far as the two-man game between Luka and Porzingis, that's going to be wild. I mean, how do you defend that pick and roll? You know, if you switch that, then, well, we assume that a power forward was defending Porzingis, and there's definitely some power forwards who are not horrible at defending lead ball handlers, which Luka is, of course, for the Mavs. But at the same time, there's not a lot of Draymonds who you can rely on to actually stay in front of the point guards, if you want to consider Luka to be that. So he's going to get a lot of penetration off of switches if the defenses want to do that, or you could throw it to KP because now he's going to have probably like a 6'6", 6'7" dude on him, which is still nowhere near tall enough to contest the guy's shots, as he's 7'3", of course. And we hope if he gets a little stronger that he could perhaps muscle some of those guys into the post. But even if he can't do that consistently, he's still going to make shots all day, hook shots, turnaround jumpers, and all that. If we talk about other ways to defend that, I mean, I don't think you can trap, because then KP is going to just be wide open. Plus, I think Luka is so damn good that he can escape a trap more often than not. If you go under the screen, Luka has proven that he's going to shoot the three-pointer. He'll take, some sort of three off the dribble. He's also very comfortable with shooting like floaters and pull-up jumpers and all that. I mean, the guy is shooting 46% on long twos, and he's shooting 46% on floaters, so good luck going under the screen on him. So then I think you might have to get a little more creative in terms of icing, which that's a little bit more personnel-based. I mean, you can try to force a dude baseline all you want, but you still need the guys who can do it. So, yeah, defenses are going to have to get creative defending these two when KP is screening for Luka, and there is a chance that could be kind of impossible to defend. I mean, assuming that KP is healthy and he's able to be the guy that we've seen, assuming that the talent around these two is not horrible, like they have guys who can make shots, and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee can definitely make shots, that might be a guaranteed, like, top 7 offense. Now, of course, we shouldn't get super excited right now just because KP might not play this season. We do also need to talk about the qualifying offer thing. Number one, I'm not super convinced, and I said this in the Knicks video, I'm not all the way convinced that KP is going to go the qualifying offer, wait a year, and then unrestricted free agent route, because the guy's coming off of a torn ACL. I mean, what if he doesn't look great until like the 50th game of the year, which is definitely possible, especially with a guy of his height. Then he could be going into free agency and suddenly he's not guaranteed some amazing contract, right? So I would have to bet that the chances of him ending up in restricted free agency, the Mavericks matching any offer he receives and all that, is definitely still on the table. Not a guarantee, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's what ended up happening, and I would definitely call his bluff on that if I was Dallas. So that's that. As far as the talent around these two, I mean, we don't really know what this team's going to look like X amount of years from now. They did take on some salary. They traded away 2 expirings, and they got back Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee. I think Courtney Lee, well, really both of them could step in right now and play meaningful minutes for this team, and Tim Hardaway Jr. is very interesting because this is the case that I made for the guy in a video not too long ago, I believe, where I said he's had to run the show for the Knicks. They've wanted him to be the number 1 option because they really don't have anybody else who can do it, and his efficiency suffered. But for the Mavericks, Luka's the number 1 dude, so Hardaway is going to be off the ball a little bit more, which I would like to think means he could get more open 3-pointers. And his 3 was already looking pretty good this year. It's like 35% on, I believe, like 7 a game. So if he's able to get like 2 or 3 more open 3s off of Luka just being Luka, then that could be amazing for his shot making. And then I think Rick is a better coach than Fizdale. The talent on this team, while it's not amazing at the moment, it's still better than what the Knicks had. And I think you could just see Hardaway in better situations, moving a little bit more off the ball and coming off of screens, and Rick Carlisle getting creative to where Hardaway could be way more efficient and, as a result, a much better player, because the talent is definitely there. The question is, can he read defenses? Is he not going to force up bad shots? And I think Rick Carlisle is going to do a lot of the work for him. I mean, we saw for the Hawks with Tim Hardaway Jr. under Mike Budenholzer, even if that team was nowhere close to the 60-win Hawks, Coach Bud was still able to have Hardaway looking pretty damn good. I mean, that was his most efficient year and all that stuff. So that could end up being a slightly underrated but kind of big part of this deal. As for Courtney Lee, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be on this team by the time his contract is up, but I think for right now and probably next season, solid pickup. I mean, he's basically Wesley Matthews, but not as egotistical, because if you were watching the Mavs this year, there were definitely times when Matthews would chuck up some shots that he shouldn't, or he'll try to drive when he shouldn't, and I don't think Courtney Lee is going to do that. He's pretty much just going to do what Rick tells him to do, and he's going to chill in the corner, shoot some threes, play some defense, score 7 points a game, and just be a model citizen, which is definitely nice to have. Now, of course, the Mavs are not done. They are going to need to get a center, because I think it's been proven as of right now, KP at the 5 can't really do it, especially because we're seeing that the health concerns are still kind of piling up, so having him be at the 5 and trading elbows, probably not the best move in the world. So you're going to have to get somebody. I don't know who that somebody is, but this is something, man. I mean, if KP is healthy, if he can play a long time, if he chooses to stay with the Mavs, and I have to bet he will, then they got Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. That's pretty freaking nuts.